All right, they didn't pay me $1 million, but this is basically the story of how I produced You're Welcome on the amazing soundtrack Moana by Disney. Back in 2008, I met this artist named Jared Evan, and at the time, he was an intern for Fader magazine. I met him and we started talking, and Jared told me that he was also, an artist and a producer, and he sings and he raps. Jared and I did a session and we started making music together, and we really hit it off and became really good friends. Over the years, we started creating more music. So fast forward to around 2011, Jared Evan ends up working with this producer who's actually a good friend of mine, this guy Static Selector, and they end up creating an album together called Bap Blues. And so Jared called me one day in 2012, and he's like, "Yo, can you come over to Static's, studio? I want you to come in and help me mix my vocals." So I go over to Static's house, and Static Selector is there, Jared is there, and I'm over there mixing this album called Bap Blues. And a couple hours later, we finish up, and as I'm leaving the studio, in comes this artist named Joell Ortiz. Now, Joell Ortiz was part of a huge group back in the 2010s called Slaughterhouse, and they were signed to Eminem. In comes Joell Ortiz as I'm walking out, and I'm like, oh shit, I need to play Joell some stuff. I go up to Joell and I'm like,
"Yo, Joell, I'm a big fan. I make beats. I got some shit. I'd love to play you some."
So he was like,
"Yeah, play me a few beats."
I played him like 2 or 3 beats, and he was like,
"Yo, those beats are fire. Take my number down."
A couple days later, I hit him up and I was like, "Yo, I'd love to send you more beats or whatever." He's like,
"Yeah, just keep sending me beats. I'm working with Slaughterhouse. I'm working on my solo stuff, blah, 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 blah."
Fast forward to around 2014. I'm in the studio in New York City, and I got a call from Joell Ortiz randomly, and he's like,
"Yo, Ilman, what are you doing?"
And I'm like, "I'm in the studio. What's good?" He's like,
"Yo, I want to pull up. Let's do some work."
I'm like, "Of course." So Joell comes to the studio, and we end up, ordering food, hanging out, kicking it, laughing, and I load up a beat. He ends up writing to the beat and recording a song. So we ended up recording a song that day. And then he left, calls me, and he's like, "Yo, what are you doing tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yo, I'm here in the studio. I'm here every day. So pull up." He's like, "All right, bet, I'll come tomorrow." So then Joell ends up coming the next day. We end up recording like 3 songs in one day. So he comes day 3, and we end up recording like 2 more songs that day. Now, at this point, we have probably 6 or 7 songs finished in a matter of 3 days. So I was like, "Yo, why don't we just keep making music?
And why don't we just do an album?"
So Joell was like, "Hell yeah, let's do an album." Okay, quick intermission. So I have a brand new website where you guys can download free sound packs from me, literally free, all Illmind produced, super high quality. You guys know how I do. So all you have to do is go to illmind.xyz, download all the free shit, and look out for some more stuff. All right, back to the video. So me and Joell end up doing an album together, and the album is called Human, and we ended up releasing it independently in the beginning of 2015. Joell and I, we go on tour, we release the album, it's called Human, and the fans love it. I love it. Around, I want to say February or March of 2015, I look on Twitter and I see that Lin-Manuel Miranda started following me on Twitter randomly. I immediately DM'd him after he started following me, and I was like,
"Yo, Lin, what's good? I'm a big fan of yours. Congrats on that, Hamilton on Broadway stuff. Appreciate the follow."
And this was around the time when Hamilton had just become the biggest thing on Broadway. I mean, sold out tickets, huge celebrities going to the show, huge support, record breaking numbers. Lin-Manuel DMs me back and he's like,
"Yo, Illmind, what's up? I'm a huge fan. I love the Human album by you and Joell Ortiz. Those beats are crazy. Joell Ortiz is one of my favorite rappers of all time."
And I was like, oh shit, that's crazy. A couple months pass and I get a text from Lin-Manuel, and he's like,
"We're working on this project called the Hamilton Mixtape, where we're taking all the music from the original Hamilton on Broadway and we're remixing them and putting different, superstar artists on them, and we're going to release it on Atlantic Records, and I'd love for you to be involved."
And so, of course, I ended up saying yes, and I actually ended up producing 4 songs on there. One of them was an actual Illmind song, with my name credited on the credits featuring Illmind, which is pretty awesome. So after working on this Hamilton mixtape, Lin and I, continued to talk. A few months later, after all this happened, I get a random phone call from Lin-Manuel. He calls me and he's like, yo, Maestro. He used to call me Maestro. He's like,
Yo, Maestro, what are you doing?
and I'm like, yo, I'm in the studio as always, And so Lin was like,
Hey, so, I'm working on this project for Disney, and I would love for you to help me produce it.
and of course I was like, fuck yeah, I'm down. Are you crazy? Of course I'm down. Drop everything for you. I didn't say that exactly, but it was something along those lines. So I end up getting on a phone call with Lin-Manuel Miranda, the president of Disney, and my manager, Jonathan. So we're on a phone call and we're talking about this song. Hey, so we're working on this soundtrack for this brand new movie that we're going to release called Moana. And it's a song called You're Welcome featuring The Rock. And we'd love for you to come in and rework this and work this into a song. They sent me the files and they sent me, sort of what they were looking for in their description. And after about 4 or 5 days, less than a week, I sent over what I had, and luckily they loved it. After that song was finished, we ended up signing paperwork, and, I was very, very, very grateful. So the soundtrack ends up coming out, and my name is, literally on the credits, on the back of the CD and on the vinyl. And I'm also in the closing credits of the actual movie in Moana. You can see my name, produced by Ramon Illmind Arbanga Jr. The crazy thing about all of this is that you can trace this placement back from, 2016 all the way back to 2008, and again, that's an 8-year period of building with the right people, making the right moves, and maneuvering in a way that led me to this Moana, You're Welcome, Disney, huge, soundtrack opportunity. And, I'm forever grateful to Lin, of course. I'm grateful to Joell. I'm grateful to Jared Evans, Static Selector, and just all the people, allowed for me to sort of take this pathway towards producing for a Disney soundtrack. So shout out to everybody involved. And, still to this day, one of the biggest records that I've been a part of. And, I'm super, super humbled and proud of this moment. And shout out to all my parents out there. I'm honored to play a small role in, a little soundtrack that your kids may or may not enjoy. I'm forever grateful.